Hey everybody, it's Tracy, and you probably read that Binance obtained a digital asset license in Bahrain, which is a relatively newcomer to crypto regulation. And it's funny because people tend to follow Binance, like so you and FTX and some of the larger exchanges, right? Like FTX got a license in the Bahamas, and then you see people trying to flood to the Bahamas, but they don't really know why, right? And the same can be said for Binance getting a license in Bahrain. And what does it really give them, right? And that is access to the MENA region, right? With the exception of the Emirates. So you're talking Saudi Arabia, Egypt, some bad actors like Iraq, Syria, Kuwait, and decidedly no access to Abu Dhabi or Dubai, who, as I've talked about before, have their own licenses and they're very strict about passporting licenses from other jurisdictions. You effectively have to get their license. So the Bahrain license is really centered on like Middle Eastern nations and jurisdictions, which there's a lot of money and there's crypto adoption, but it's limited in scope and it's not going to allow you to operate in, say, Europe or any place like that. And I think when you're Binance, maybe that makes sense because you're running out of jurisdictions to operate in because you operate in nearly all of them. But it's probably not the best place to start unless you had like a decided advantage for that marketplace, right? Which again excludes ideally the crypto capital of the world, which is Dubai. And the cost and process isn't really that straightforward. The capital requirement's 800,000. The process can take 6-7 months. There's 4 categories that cover basically all types of crypto activity, from exchanges to wallet providers to etc. But it's not the easiest license to get, and it's not the most straightforward process from what I gather. And it's also very expensive, right? Much like Dubai. So I think if you were looking at it and saying, okay, what's my option? Dubai, Abu Dhabi are by far better options to invest your money and your time versus Bahrain, because it's more expensive, it takes longer, and it's going to give you ostensibly less crypto adoption, less population and wealth than like a Dubai. And if you're American, like I am, you can't deal with Iraq, right? There's big sanctions issues. Like there's big sanction issues with Saudi Arabia, right? Like you have real compliance issues if you are an American or even from like the UK and you're dealing in that region, right? Dubai is one thing because it's very multicultural and you find a lot of, a lot of expats and what they're there. But outside of the Emirates, which has very strong AML KYC controls, you don't really have that anywhere else, right? And so for like a European or American, Canadian, Australian, what have you, to jump on board and go head first into Bahrain and then try to service like Iraq, which is a big no-no because it's on the sanctions list. Syria, big no-no. But even like Saudi Arabia, you're gonna have KYC issues like you can't believe. So it's an interesting concept, but again, like you see the larger exchanges get these licenses, which they sometimes don't really even need. I mean, they did in this instance, but they don't in others. And they just want to be licensed everywhere there's a license. And that's fine when you have the wherewithal to do that. But that doesn't mean that startups should follow that model, right? Because that model is inherently flawed and applies to highly capitalized, well-established operations versus what a startup may be. So unless there's a direct affinity and connection and you live in that region, I would probably avoid the Bahrain license, right? I think Dubai, Abu Dhabi is going to give you far more by way of wealth and profit than what you're probably going to see, and far less headache in terms of KYC, AML issues and the like. So that's my take. It's kind of up in flux. Like I've talked to regulators there, and it's very difficult to kind of get answers. So it's kind of hard to relay that to my audience to say, well, it's this or that or whatever. There's no certainty to it. But if you have questions, definitely hit me up. Adam at AdamTracy, TRACY.io, and I will talk to you next time. Cheers.